Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs in our understanding of history, they don't come from digging up some long-lost city or a giant flashy monument. Nope. Sometimes they come from something much, much smaller. Something like a single, unassuming tablet of baked clay.
I mean, how is that even possible, right? How can an object that fits in the palm of your hand, inscribed over 2,500 years ago, hold the key to solving a major historical mystery? And yet, that's exactly what this small piece of Babylon did. The real question is, how?
All right, so let's get right to it and meet the object at the heart of our story. It's called the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle, and right now it's sitting in the British Museum, just packed with the secrets of a long-vanished empire. And just to be clear, this isn't some legend. It's a real, physical object you can actually go see. It's made of plain old clay, baked hard around 595 BC. It somehow managed to survive all those centuries before the British Museum got their hands on it in 1896. Just try to imagine the journey that thing has been on. But that journey has a little bit of mystery to it. See, the chronicle is unprovenanced. Now, that's a fancy word that basically means it wasn't discovered in a proper, carefully documented archaeological dig. Instead, the museum just bought it from an antiquities dealer. So we have no idea where exactly it was found. It just sort of appeared from the sands of a rock. Its story intact, but its original location totally lost to time. And this thing isn't just a random piece of pottery. Not at all. It's a royal record. Think of it as a kind of official military diary from the reign of one of the most famous and, frankly, most feared kings of the ancient world, Nebuchadnezzar II. And what's carved into it is absolutely crucial. The tiny wedge-shaped writing, called cuneiform, painstakingly lays out the big events from the first 11 years of Nebuchadnezzar's rule. That makes it a primary source. We're getting the official story straight from the Babylonian court itself. And it starts off with a real bang. The tablet records Nebuchadnezzar's campaigns out west, including this massive, world-changing battle at a place called Carchemish. This was an epic showdown where the rising superpower of Babylon faced off against the old, mighty empire of Egypt for control of the whole region. And just listen to the language here. It really captures the brutal efficiency of the Babylonian war machine. The Chronicle does not mince words. It says, "He beat them to non-existence." Wow. That's a chillingly direct report from the winner, telling you in no uncertain terms that Egypt's defeat was absolute. But as huge as that battle with Egypt was, it's not what makes this tablet a true historical game-changer. Nope. It's another campaign, one that's mentioned almost like a casual note in a logbook that would send shockwaves through history: the Siege of Jerusalem. Now, for centuries, pretty much the only detailed account we had of this event was from the Hebrew Bible. It's a powerful story of the siege, the capture of the king, and the beginning of the Babylonian exile. It was the story told from the perspective of the people who lost. But then, this little piece of clay gets deciphered. And suddenly, for the very first time, we had the other side of the story. The official report from the conquerors, written down just a few years after it all happened. And get this, listen to how precise it is. The chronicler doesn't actually say Jerusalem, but it refers to the city of Judah. It says that in his 7th year on the throne, Nebuchadnezzar attacked it, and on a very specific day, the 2nd day of the month of Adar, he took the city and captured its king. So let's break that down. What the tablet does is confirm all the key events we know from the biblical account. There was a siege of Judah's capital, its king, Jeconiah, was captured, and a new king, Zedekiah, who was friendly to Babylon, was put on the throne. Oh, and it also mentions a massive amount of treasure was hauled off to Babylon. It was a complete and total victory. Okay, so having two independent accounts of the same event from 2,500 years ago, that's already amazing. But the tablet's real bombshell, its true superpower, was its incredible precision. Because if you can lock down one single solid date in the ancient world, it becomes an anchor point, letting you line up entire timelines around it. And this is where the tablet went from being just a fascinating object to a history-making one. You see, before this tablet was really understood, there was this huge debate going on among scholars. Using different texts and different ways of calculating dates, historians just could not agree on the exact year this incredibly important event took place. So you had one camp, led by scholars like Edwin Thiel, who worked meticulously through the timelines in the Bible, and they calculated the date as 597 BC. But then you had another group of really prominent academics like William F. Albright, who looked at other evidence and came to a different conclusion, 598 BC. Now, a one-year difference might not sound like a huge deal, but for historians trying to build a solid timeline, that 1 year changes everything.
And this argument went back and forth for decades. Until 1956. That year, an Assyriologist named Donald Wiseman published his complete translation and analysis of the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicle. He figured out how to connect the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar and that second day of Adar to our modern calendar.
And the date he found? 597 BC. He even nailed it down to a specific day, March 16th, 597 BC. The Babylonian record, written thousands of years ago, completely independently, confirmed the date that had been figured out from the biblical timeline. Just like that, a decades-long academic fight was settled by a piece of clay.
But the story doesn't quite end there, because what the tablet tells us is incredibly important, but what it doesn't tell us is just as revealing. History is often found in the gaps, in the silences.
We have to remember that this chronicle is not the whole story. It only covers the first 11 years of Nebuchadnezzar's very long reign. So it's an amazingly detailed snapshot, but after that 11th year, the official record on this particular tablet just stops.
And that silence is huge. The tablet says nothing about the second, much more brutal siege that completely destroyed Jerusalem 10 years later in 587 BC. It tells us nothing about the next 32 years of Nebuchadnezzar's rule, or the details of the mass exile of the Jewish people. For that part of the story, we still have to rely on other sources. And that kind of leaves us with one last really tantalizing thought. This single tablet, bought from a dealer more than 100 years ago, completely changed our understanding of a key moment in ancient history. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other chronicles, what other hidden histories, what other truths are still out there, just buried under the sand, waiting for someone to find them?